Oh, shit. Okay. I'm also just gonna say in the intro that we're recording this beer pong. Okay.
Uno, dos, tres, acción.
Welcome to the Pitcher Podcast, where the conversation is free flow, everything is on the house, and all we ask for in return is for you not to give us 1-star reviews. I'm Cody.
And I'm Ian.
And today we're going to be talking about the summer between the end of high school and the start of university. So for us, that was summer 2016.
Okay, we're going to preface by saying that this is our second recording of this episode. Our first recording was like hella boring. It was super dry. I think we were talking about like the technicalities of like the university application process.
Yeah.
Which was not really like the sort of tone that we're going for.
Yeah. We just went down a tangent of like talking about UCAS and the Common App and everything.
And I was like, the UCAS is so boring. I try to talk more about it than like need be.
Oh man.
Okay, but just to start off, we have a new segment called the Culture Corner, where Cody and I would like to share maybe a song, a poem. Okay, let's chill out with that. A song, maybe a movie, or a book that we read. Because I would say that Cody and I are like two peas in a pod, but very different peas. And I would love to share something that I would enjoy and something that Cody would enjoy. So, firstly, I want to share a song called Territory by The Blaze. It's been like the song for me the past like month or two. Always hypes me up to do like work or workout. Whenever I drive, I love like thinking as I listen to this song. So I'll give you a nice little 10-second snippet.
When sun up so dead I'm waking up. There's nobody like my mom. There's no place like my home since I was born.
I'm gonna blue balls you by not playing Drop. But just listening to it just gets me so riled up. So, Cody, what's your song recommendation of the week?
Okay.
Not Asher Wrong. I Love College, please.
So the song that played a second ago just by mistake was I Love College by Asher Roth. And Ian and I were listening to it right before we hit record.
It's our anthem, man.
This episode. Just to pump us up about talking about pre-college. But my song is Hot Tub Dream Machine by Toby Lou. My roommate Ryan this past year introduced me to Toby Lou, and I listened to this song a lot when I was on my 14-day quarantine after coming back to Hong Kong a couple weeks ago. And just the way I am, I think when I'm cooped up too much, I get quite anxious and like stir crazy. So the place that I was quarantining at had a little staircase, and I would just keep running up and down that every day to get my steps in. And while I was running and super anxious, I would play Hot Tub Dream Machine. So I'm gonna play just
I realized it's Hot Tub Dream Machine, not Time Machine. I thought it was based on the movie.
Yeah, I think this whole album is like Hot Tub different word machine. I think don't quote me on that actually, but I think don't quote me on that. Okay, anyways, so I'm gonna play like 10 quick seconds right now for you.
I need a hot tub time machine, then I can go back and fix everything. Same on you, but a different me. Maybe we could be human beings. Still struggling with a whole lot of things. I'm still down here spiraling.
Okay,
thanks, Cody. That was such a banger. Love that song. Okay, so the topic of today is regarding our little experience before we started university. So that can be summed up with summer 2016, summer 16. That's when we had our graduation, our dinner dance, which is basically prom, and our graduation trip. So we would love to share all these stories with you guys because if you didn't know, Cody and I grew up in Hong Kong, and I think that's very different to a lot of the experiences other people are having in the UK, in the US, or just everywhere around the world. So we'd love to just share a few stories regarding each experience. So let's talk about graduation. So graduation, I would say, like, sums a lot of things up. There's like a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry, a lot of happiness, a lot of sadness as well. So let's just even track it even further back. Let's say before graduation, what were your sort of like anxieties or worries transitioning away from high school? Just briefly speaking.
Oh gosh, that's such a big question. So things that I was like worried about with leaving high school and everything. Yeah, I think for me, I just had such a good time with high school. I had a friend group with all of you guys that I really enjoyed, and I feel like, just like was kind of all I needed in terms of a friend group. And then I got on with a lot of the teachers really well at our high school as well. So I just had like kind of what I thought was like my ideal community or something, and I couldn't imagine like that being replicated anywhere, or like finding a community that I enjoyed more than that in university. So I think just because of that, I had a lot of anxiety about like if I would fit in with my college, or like how I would be just like transplanted into a completely different culture and country that looks super different from the one that I grew up in. So I guess that was kind of like my biggest anxiety with leaving high school and graduation and everything. But what about you?
I think I'm not a big overthinker, so I don't overthink a lot of different things. I just take it as it is. But I think one of my worries or anxieties were regarding like going to a university that I did not expect to go to. Yeah. Due to the fact that the school that I graduated from was not the school that I was supposed to go to, due to a rather lacking performance in my IB exams. But I think it was a very slight instance of a worry. Like I didn't really drag onto it. I was very open-minded, and I was really excited for the sort of independence and the new experiences that I would, encounter in university. So I think definitely what helped me was like a lot of the positives that I saw overrided all the negative aspects, which were very little to say the least.
Okay.
So now that we've kind of talked a bit about our worries, let's talk about our, I guess, the sad or happy parts of actually graduating. Like, did you... Because I remember, like, in our it wasn't the ceremony, but it was where everyone in our year kind of came together. We're taking photos. We're all wearing our graduation gear. I remember looking around the room. Everyone's, like, sad. Everyone's crying. And I was like, damn, am I that heartless? Am I that emotionless? Like, I felt sad, but for those who don't know, like, I'm not a crier. Like, I can't cry for some reason. Yeah. But I did feel sad. Like, I'm not going to call Michael out. I'm not calling him out. But, like, I never seen Michael cry. But he was, like, tearing up during that time as well. I'm like, if even Michael's tearing up, why am I not feeling anything? Yeah. But, like, I think it was a very sad, but it was, like, a nice time for us to all, like, reconvene and just, like, be in each other's presence as well, but before, like, actually graduating.
Yeah, for sure. This is why last episode, one of the words that I used to describe Ian was machismo. But yeah.
Yeah, sure. You intended that.
Yeah, I guess one thing that I was going to ask about you is... and it's kind of tied to the question that you just asked me, but specifically with going to university, like what's one thing that you were like apprehensive or nervous or worried about? And what would Ian now, so like the Ian in 2020, say to that 2016 version of Ian?
Is this talking about like going to university or like even before that?
I guess either. It's kind of up to you.
I mean, the obvious thing is before that, probably study more on your IB exams. Hopefully do better. I mean, not hopefully. I already like gone and done that. Yeah. But I don't regret it now. I had a great time in university. But I guess before university, I was kind of apprehensive about the whole idea of making new friends. Like, especially with our friend group and a lot of the close friends that I still have till today. Like, I've known them since primary school. Like, basically in Hong Kong, Cody and I went to an international school, and the system like allows people who go to similar primary schools to end up in the similar secondary schools, and people in the same secondary schools happen to go to similar locations. Like it's either the UK or the US, more or less. And there isn't a need to transition into an environment where you have to start over fresh and have to make brand new friends and actually put yourself out there. Like, we always had our friends throughout this entire maturing process, so we weren't really challenged in that aspect. So I think I did have a bit of apprehension regarding meeting new people, especially in a different country. I didn't know what they're gonna be like, what they look like, what they feel like. Well, that was kind of weird. What they feel like.
Right.
But essentially, what I'm saying is like I was intrigued. I guess I wasn't too worried, but intrigued as to how I would cope with that. And how I did cope with that. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later on in this podcast. But yeah, what about you, Cody?
I think it's kind of tied to my last answer as well. I was just really worried about my friend group and staying in contact with everyone. And yeah, that was something that I had a lot of anxiety about because throughout high school and middle school, we just had so much like FaceTime with each other and like physical presence and like physical contact and stuff.
Love languages. Let's talk about love languages.
Maybe in another podcast. But that was something that I was worried about. And I think like in my hysteria about graduation, I kind of imagined that like, oh shit, like this is the end for our friend group. And like after university, we're just going to change so much and be such different people. And like, I'm not going to see these people again. So like, I have to like make this time that I have with them count. And I think I put a lot of pressure on myself for that. And I think what like 2020 Cody would say to like that angsty little 2016 Cody is like, just like calm the fuck down for a second, I guess. And realize that like, if you're willing to put in work, it's like gonna be a breeze to like stay in contact with everyone. Like, and it is gonna be different. You're not gonna be having so much constant like FaceTime or physical presence with them as much. But like, it's a lot easier than I thought it would be to like actually keep in touch with everyone and remain like close relationally and stuff.
I didn't actually answer the second part of the question regarding like what I would tell myself, but I wouldn't actually have told myself anything. Like I want myself to experience it without like any assistance and just to like freestyle everything and just like go with the flow, which is why I enjoyed it so much, which I would expand on later.
Okay, that's very mature of you.
But I also love how you called yourself angsty, like your 13 kid or whatever. Because I wonder what that angsty kid, quote unquote, would say to his even more angsty kid in 2011.
Let's not talk about that.
Shall we move on? Next I would talk about is probably dinner dance. Or is there anything else you want to expand on graduation? Because graduation wasn't like something that was super formal in our school. It was more of like a gathering and then just like photo taking, listening to a few speeches. Yeah, graduation was kind of funny in that like it wasn't the last time that the school was like hosting a formal event for us. So we had like our last day of classes, and then after that we had like our big exam period, and then after that we had our graduation day.
Our graduation like ceremony and everything. And then we had our dinner dance like a couple weeks after that or something, which is just like our prom, like our senior prom. And then we had our grad trip after that, but we can get into that later. But it was just kind of interesting because it like wasn't the last time that we were all gonna be in one place together. So I think because of that, it just like wasn't as emotionally intense as like maybe a US high school graduation would be or something.
All right, so basically I keep slapping my lap because I'm very like restless. I can't just sit down here, so that's probably the sound you heard. But let's talk about dinner dance. Any juicy stories from dinner dance? I know we have a few, but you want to talk about like the biggest one that kind of made everyone, you know, laugh a bit.
So shout out to Rooksy, my best friend in high school. She was one of the MCs for our dinner dance event, and there was just this.
Should we just call them out, just like the actual names?
No, absolutely not.
Oh, no?
Absolutely not.
No, okay.
So there
But
was,
you know who you are if you're listening to this.
Everyone in our year who's listening to this knows exactly what I'm talking about. But there was this one girl in our year who brought her boyfriend, who went to a different high school in Hong Kong, to the dinner dance. And it was just kind of awkward because he didn't necessarily know a lot of other people. And like maybe a month or a month and a half before that, she ended up kind of having a thing with another person in our year. And anyways,
I'm not gonna say his name, but Balun. that's as close as I'm gonna get to it. But that's essentially his name.
Anyways, breezing past that, Rooksy just thought it would be funny to kind of bring that up in kind of like an informal, joking manner. But the way it came out was super, super funny. And
it was super awkward.
It was also super awkward.
Okay, the thing is, like, when this chick and the guy like got together a few weeks before dinner dance, it was the oddest couple. Like, they're not in the same friend circles. They're such polar opposite people. Like, this guy is like one of my close friends. I rag on him so much about this, like, back in the days. But they're just the most odd couple, and they happened to like hook up that one night. And the fact that Rosie pointed it out in front of like everyone during dinner dance, in front of all the teachers. There was teachers there
all
as
the
well.
teachers.
And then especially since that chick brought a date from a different school to that dinner, it was the funniest thing. Like, as she said it, everyone like stood up. Everyone's like shouting. That was a great moment.
Yeah,
definitely.
that was really something.
And I think dinner dance was also like a big moment or event for like me particular, because it was my first time going out. I was quite the saint. I didn't start going out and drinking until I was 18. And just a quick backstory behind that. It wasn't that I didn't want to. It was like a pride thing. Like, my sister told me that, like I said previously, I was like, oh, I was never going to go out until I'm legal. And she was like, yeah, sure. Like, that's never going to happen. So my ego kicked in and I was like, yeah, I'll prove it to you. Like, 100% that I would do it. And then I ended up doing it. Did I get anything from doing it? Probably not. Maybe it tickled my ego a bit. But yeah, that was my first time going out. I don't actually remember, like, my memory's really wary when it comes to that moment, but had a great time, I believe, with everyone. Like, everyone went out as a year, so it ought to be a good time, right? And sadly, Cody wasn't with us that night. We're not going to expand on that, but I guess transitioning away from that, going out, it was summer 16 was the first time Cody and I properly like went out and like started partying, I guess, embracing Hong Kong's lively nightlife, I guess. So, what was your first experience? What did you remember from your first experience going out?
Yeah, I think it wasn't necessarily going out so much as like my first experience with alcohol.
Yeah.
But it was at kind of like a graduation party put on by one of our friends, and I'm quite good friends with her, Rachel. Rachel. But anyways, it was a graduation / kind of like birthday event that she put on. And before the event, as Ian mentioned, like, our friend group throughout high school didn't really like party too much. We didn't really like drink a ton. And so that summer was like the first time where most of us were legal, and ended up like trying it out for the first time. So I think because we had that like reputation, Rachel's mom actually like designated me as like she called me the police officer of the night, and it was my job to like look after everyone and make sure that like no one did anything like outrageous, or like no one got up to any like shenanigans that were too bad. And that night,
Little did she know.
That night ended up being my first time drinking, and it was just like nothing outrageous happened, but it was just a funny moment where it was completely like a new experience for me, and I was just like having the time of my life, and it was kind of a wholesome moment, honestly.
Wait, should we talk about what we're like drunk? Do you want to describe each another how we're drunk? Like, okay, should we do it?
Yeah. Okay.
So basically, Cody is like, when he's under the influence, he's super giddy, super happy, and like, I love it. But sometimes he acts like I don't know how to describe it, like a noodle. It's like hard to actually like grab him and try to like bring him anywhere.
I'm slippery.
He just kind of like slips everywhere, and he's just not very like compliant with like trying to do something, which is quite hilarious to see. But sometimes when we're trying to go from A to B, it's a bit of a problem.
Yeah, I guess in terms of Ian, I think he gets quite kind of like authoritative when he's under the influence. Not in a bad way or anything, but he's definitely like, honestly, like our friend group needs like someone to take charge when we're all like drunk, and Ian honestly like most of the time steps up to that position. So he just like kind of makes directions, and because of that, it's like easier to have a direction as a group, even though I like run away from him sometimes.
Okay, it's funny that you say this because we have a story later regarding our grad trip, which is the polar opposite of that. I would say like we're all happy drunks. Like none of us are aggressive drunks.
Yeah, none of
us. Which
are
means
aggressive.
we always have like a nice time when we drink responsibly, mom and dad. Very responsibly. We don't really get drunk. Wink, wink. But that was, I don't know why I said that. That was very cringe. But yeah, that was, I think we had a lot of like house parties that year. And to give context to what Cody was saying, like we were like a relatively like prude year. Like we didn't really do anything. That's why we were a very like academic year as well. A lot of high achievers, which is why we have a list of guests that we would love to bring to this podcast. We have a lot of people who are doing a lot of crazy things that we would love to interview. But yeah, our year essentially was, I wouldn't say boring. Like we, especially our friend group, were very reckless. We had a lot of fun in our own ways, but we just didn't have it in a way that we had to use alcohol to enjoy ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Which was pretty good.
Sure.
Like I didn't think we had to be like heavily reliant on alcohol or have to succumb to that kind of peer pressure to be in that scene, because our entire year and all our friends were kind of out of it as well.
Yeah, I think so too.
So I think it was a very wholesome upbringing that we had, relatively wholesome upbringing.
Yeah,
but sure. Okay, after dinner dance, after the parties, which was Cody's first experience with alcohol, the next big thing is our graduation trip. So essentially in Hong Kong, it's kind of this implied thing where all the international school graduates all convene at Koh Samui. That's a nice little island in Thailand. And basically we all go there. We all have these villas. We all have like a week of partying and drinking, and a bit of obnoxious stuff has gone on in that week. Do you have a nice story to tell us regarding that, Cody? Why don't we start with that was actually our first night, right? The day we landed.
It was.
Hey, you can start us off on that.
So I should preface this with like the fact that it's such a like insanely like privileged thing for all of us to do. Like nothing says like growing up in like,
I shouldn't have said that we all had our villas and stuff. That sounds really bad.
Yeah.
It's actually really cheap. Like everything in Koh Samui is really cheap.
Yeah, but yeah, nothing says like growing up in like the international Hong Kong scene as like going on just like this stupid like 5-day trip to an island in Thailand. But I on the first night after we arrived, one of our friends was throwing a birthday party at the place that she was staying, and just the way that like our junior and senior year of high school went, one of the people in our friend group that was staying with us in our accommodation had kind of like a colored history with her.
Was dating her.
And
Let's not beat around the bush, Cody. They were going out.
And didn't end super well. So because of that, he was the only one not invited to
from our villa. Yeah,
from our villa to this birthday party. And so because of that, Ian, me, and our other friend Gareth arrived earlier that day, and then this other guy and our friend Michael arrived later that evening.
Because we took different flights.
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly. And so Gareth, Ian, and I ended up going to this house party for our friend's birthday, and we didn't really keep the other two.
We didn't pace ourselves, essentially. Like, we completely lost track of time. We completely forgot that Michael and the other friend, I don't know, we could name him, right? It's not too bad. Huh?
No.
Okay, fine. Michael and the other friend were in the villa. They did arrive late, which is also partially a reason. We went to the party maybe midday. The sun was still up. But, there were these vodka gummy bears on the table, and I essentially consumed almost the entire bowl, not like realizing that they were like filled to the brim with alcohol. So I like fast forwarding towards the night, like Gareth. He was the authoritarian. He was actually he said, like, recalling back to that experience, he was also kind of like drunk and tipsy, but he had to control us because we had to go pick Michael and the other guy up in the villa. But essentially, Cody and I were not in a great state. We were both noodles at that point, very slippery, and Gareth just very annoyed with us, like trying to get us out. We're like, oh no, we want to stay. Gareth, you go alone. It was kind of a dick move. But yeah, we ended up grabbing a taxi and then going back to our villa, and then like Michael and the other guy was not very pleased with the state we were in. And then we got back, and that starts our journey with our taxi driver, Ak. So, briefly speaking, basically we have this taxi driver that we met on the first day that became our designated driver for the entire week because we were there for like 7-8 days. And basically, we picked us up, went to our villa, picked Lucas and Michael up, and then met up with everyone at the hot spot of Koh Samui, which was like the clubbing district, was Green Mango, classic Green Mango. But essentially picked them up, and then en route to the Green Mango, I had a bit of a madness. I was just not feeling that great. Like, as I said, like it was summer 16 was the first time I actually started drinking, and I guess Koh Samui was the time for me to test my limits.
Yeah, for sure.
We were in the taxi, and I was just like, oh, I feel kind of weird. Like my body's not reacting to the alcohol very well. So I felt my stomach was grumbling. Like I felt like gagging a bit. And then we were going pretty fast, like en route to Green Mango, and I was like, oh shit, I needed to throw up. But I couldn't put it into words because I was just in such a dilapidated state. So I was just like kind of like shaking in the taxi. And I think the other guy in our villa, I hate saying the other guy, it's so long, but the other guy in our villa saw me. He's like, oh my god, I think Ian's about to throw up. And I was just like, and then the window was down, and I kept pressing the button, and I guess Ak locked the windows in the back. And I was like, and then right before I throw up, he unlocks the windows. I roll down the windows, and I throw up. I projectile vomit outside the window, and I was like, oh, I thought I got everything out, but then I see, like on the side of the car, there was like a bit of vomit left, and a bit of vomit in my shirt. After the fact, I realized I vomited on my shirt, but I was like, during the time, I was like, damn, that was super clean. I'm glad I got that all out.
It must have felt good.
It felt great. Like, literally right after I threw up, I had like the instant restart button, and I just like started drinking again. I hate for you to hear this, Mom and Dad, but I started drinking again, and then we had our first night at Koh Samui, which was like the first of many. Essentially in Koh Samui, unlike other groups, we were there for like 7 days, right? 7-8 days. Like other groups would like go kayaking, go hiking, but essentially like we partied for 7 nights in a row, lived on instant noodles, alcohol, and the occasional fried rice from our local hut restaurant. And it was a very interesting experience. I don't regret anything. Like, I think it's a part of our coming of age experience, our Hong Kong coming of age experience. And like, I mean, we met a lot of like friends that we knew from other schools, which was really good. Like, you want to expand on that? Anything you want to expand on that? No?
I think there's not much to talk about other than that it was a nice like bonding moment with a bunch of other people going to different other international schools, because that community is pretty close in Hong Kong. So
I think that's one of the benefits of growing up in Hong Kong as well. It's like,
I think so too.
We have such a tight-knit group of people from different schools as well. So that was pretty nice. Transitioning away from Koh Samui, I'm sure we have a lot more stories, but not very...
For the sake of our parents.
Not very PG, not very PG. But transitioning away from Koh Samui, I guess we're gonna talk about our first experiences in uni and actually going to uni. So you want to start about that?
Yeah, I guess just like, do you have any instances in either like the first day or like first week or first month of college that were like quite notable to you?
Oh, I thought I said starting about that meant that you're going to talk about your first experience.
Oh, sorry.
But yeah, regarding your question, like, did you say something memorable?
Why don't I go?
Okay, yeah, why don't you go?
So yeah, one of the instances that I thought about was I had to go to college kind of early on, so like maybe a month or even 2 months before.
Wait, did you go with your parents?
No, well, my parents were already in the U.S. actually, so like my mom flew from California to Chicago and took me through orientation week. But before orientation week, our college had this like 2 or 3 week experience called Passage, and the idea is that like incoming freshmen could go into it, and it would be like a good opportunity for them to like make friends prior to orientation week and like get to know professors in like more of an intimate setting. We would take like classes, but then also like do like fun like camping activities and stuff. So I was just like really nervous about making friends and stuff. So I went to it. It ended up being awful, like just one of the like worst like 2 weeks of my life. One of the big things was just being like so close with all of my friends in summer 16, and then having to like go to a completely new place with like completely new people and a completely new culture. And they also took away like any technology too, because they didn't want us to be like communicating with like the outside world too for like character development and stuff. So it was just like really
it's essentially like a Christian Love Island, man.
I guess, honestly, I guess. But that was just tough for me because it was hard to be like taken away from like my friends and to have like no medium with which to like communicate with them. So one of the like big culture shock moments for me was one night where in our accommodation I was just kind of like minding my own business and like reading a book or something, and then one of the guys, because they had split it because it's quite conservative and Christian of a school, they split it into like girls accommodation and then guys accommodation. And so I was just reading a book one night, and then one of the guys comes over to me in the living room and says, "Cody, like, come in, we're gonna like all just have this talk in one of the bedrooms." And I was like, okay. So I went in, and everyone is sitting in a circle just on the floor, and they closed the door and we're like, okay, so like this is the conversation that like we've been waiting to have for a while. So like let's just like get down to business. Which of the girls do you think is most attractive and why? And it was just like, I was so shocked in this moment. Wholesome. But it was, there was an element of it being wholesome, and then just an element of being like, we're like 18. Some of the people were like even older than that because they had like taken a break before going to college. So like one of the guys was like 22 talking about this. And it was just this weird moment of being like in such a like Christian, like purity culture like environment, and I hadn't had to experience that as intensely like any time before that. So it was just this weird moment of like just feeling like super younger and like out of our age. And yeah, I don't even know how to fully put it into words, but it was just like a weird, gross experience that was like still sticks with me to this day because I just like hated it and wanted to get out of that room so badly.
But also just shows you how pure like the people that go to the university are.
Yeah,
I like
for sure.
The fact that it's like a bunch of like 7-year-olds going in a room.
I know
they're not willing to like vocally like speak as to like who they're attracted to. Is quite a funny experience.
Yeah, Christian, like evangelical Christian guy culture is so weird, and I guess we can talk about it in another podcast episode too.
Like,
but like,
which girl would you want to marry?
Yeah, it's so weird, and has quite a few actually like toxic underpinnings. But anyways,
whoa.
Again, we can get into that in like another episode or something.
So
what about you?
Regarding my first week in university, so basically in the UK we have this thing called Freshers Week. Yet again, it's like an experience for everyone to socialize, go out, meet other people. And I think it kind of answered a lot of the anxieties that I had previously mentioned regarding making friends, because it was such a good, like, I guess, probationary period for me to get to know people and be able to assimilate into, like, university culture and, like, the people in university. Essentially, on the first day, we meet up as the entire accommodation. We kind of get to know people around in different blocks, in different apartments. And I think that was really good. We were able to see who's there, who's around. But also in the start of Freshers Week, especially for my block. So essentially, a block consists of around maybe like 6 to 8 apartments. And each apartment has around like 5 people or 8 people. And what we did was we all like would convene in one apartment. So it's like a massive like house party. And go out as a massive group. And then a lot of the things we would do like as a massive group. So I think that was really good. Like it forced us to socialize. It forced us to get to know one another. And I think that definitely helped my transition so much more. And I think it was a good way of like igniting the fire and starting to make friends in a new environment. A lot of the friends that I've made since the first day, are still my close friends till now. But obviously a lot of them, you know, we kind of distance ourselves once we start getting into our subjects, getting to know other people.
Yeah, for sure.
But had a lot of fun. And regarding my degree, let's talk about the technicalities of company law. Mom and Dad, you want to skip over this? It's very boring. But now that they're gone, basically, I'll just briefly talk about one story in Freshers Week. So this progresses beyond my first experience drinking in summer 16 into Ian's first time blacking out. So I'm just going to quickly graze over this, like provide as like little details as possible because it's semi-embarrassing.
Mom and Dad, stop listening.
Stop listening.
Just please.
This is a fake story. Well, essentially, like, I was going to football training, soccer for the Americans out there, and it was a late one, so I went back to my accommodation around 10:30, and a friend of mine and some other friends from a flat above were still pre-gaming for you guys in the U.S., and everyone was like, oh yeah, we're all going out. And I was like, oh, I'm a bit tired. I just finished football. But everyone was like, oh, it's Freshers Week. And that was all it took. It was like, it's Freshers Week. I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds very fair. Like, you didn't have to say any more. So me and a friend, Farhan, basically went down to our Tesco's, like a local convenience store, supermarket. And each got a bottle of like around 375 milliliter bottle of Tesco Select vodka. So for those who do not know, like own brand alcohol is probably the worst thing you can drink. It's the dirt of the earth. It's worse than like sewage, but it's like super cheap and it gets the job done essentially. But yet again, I was still I would still say I'm very inexperienced back then with alcohol. So I didn't really know my limits. And we bought the bottles. Farhan was taking his time. I had to shower, I had to change because I just came from football. So in a matter of 10 minutes, I decided to just finish that entire bottle. I had no food in my system, nothing. And after the 10 minutes, I deadass just like blacked out. And then I woke up in my bed and I was just like, did I go out? And then I listened to all the stories that people tell me about what happened right after I left the gate. Because essentially all I remembered was like pre-gaming and then leaving the gate and then bam, I'm back in my bed. And I was just like, it smells a bit like vomit in the room as well. I checked the bin. Like the remains of a Subway sandwich were inside. And I was like, oh yeah, I had a Subway sandwich last night.
And did you remember that at all?
Yeah, I did remember the Subway sandwich, but that was it. And then I hear back all these stories, and I'm just like, oh my god, I was such an ass. Like, I was so embarrassing the entire night. It was totally not me, obviously, because I was blacked out. But yeah, that was an interesting story of mine in terms of my first time blacking out. And I think the trend repeats itself in several other experiences in uni. But we might delve into those or just not talk about those experiences further down the line. But I think it was a nice little, way to connect us, between Cody and I and the audience, by sharing a few of these intimate personal stories. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry if you actually did not fall for my trap and actually continue to listen to these stories. But just to let you know, I drink responsibly. I can handle my liquor now. And yeah, anything you want to add on top?
Not too much, other than the fact that we obviously had just like very different university experiences. One by nature of, I think, just like alcohol being more present early on in UK universities. Yeah, exactly. With everyone being legal because they're 18 there. And obviously like with the the US legal age being 21, it's just like not something that is as accessible like super early on in orientation, at least. Add on to that the fact that like the school that I went to was like very conservative, very Christian. It was like a dry campus, and so we were prohibited from drinking. So like especially like in my first couple years of university, that just like wasn't necessarily a huge part of like my life, I guess. So and obviously like as you get older and stuff, like people start to get legal towards their junior or senior year, and then it becomes kind of like more of just a chill thing that people do together. But there wasn't like a huge like unified like party or like clubbing culture as well. So
we're gonna explore more about university life in further episodes, but looking at our notes, we still have like a lot of funny memories from high school that we'll try to maybe sprinkle in. We'll have maybe like a short segment within different episodes, just like revisiting funny memories that we had in high school. I think that would be an interesting idea as well. But just to finish off, we want to thank you for listening. We finally got our social media details sorted. So you could give us a follow on Instagram at PitcherPod, PitcherPod. And we would also love to hear thoughts and suggestions. So you can email us at pitcherpod@gmail.com or just DM us on our Instagram account regarding things you might want to hear us talk about or for us to watch or listen to and then talk about afterwards. And I want to thank you for listening, and I guess we'll grab a picture with you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.